In political science, we have two types of theories. One is scientific theories. First, try to understand, then you can note it down. And another is philosophical theories. Or you can say these are normative theories. And you can say that scientific theories are empirical theories. Now, what do you understand by philosophical theories or normative theory? Normative means the theories which are based on norms and values. Getting my point? Which are based on norms and values. That means here no need for factual experiments. This is just based on logics. Philosophies are just based on logics, interpretation. Like, for example, the theory of justice. Justice is a value in political science. So justice theory comes under philosophical theory. Then liberty is also a value. Getting my point? Then equality, it is a value. So these are value based theories. That means norms based theories. So it comes under philosophical theories. Now scientific theories, these are also called as empirical theories. These are based on facts. These are based on observation. These are based on experiments. Etc. Now, how these observation or experiment, for example, before election, exit polls. Exit polls are there to study the nature of electoral behavior. So that is considered as experiment. Getting my point? For example, exit polls. Electoral behavior. Recently, a survey was done, and in which 80% of India prefers Prime Minister Modi only. Getting my point? Recently, the survey was done last week only. So that survey comes under this experiment only. Clear? So these are called as scientific theories, which are based on experiments and facts. Clear? And these are based on philosophies, values, and ideas. Getting my point? Now, so in political science, which theory will dominate? Philosophical or scientific? Philosophical, because it was a part of philosophy only. Getting my point? So in political science, philosophical or normative theory dominates. So clash of interest, between emerging capitalists and feudal lords. So clash of interest was there because the land was under the control of feudal lords. And capitalists, they were emerging and they wanted to establish their factories and they had to pay high rent. And this became another reason for clash of interest between feudal lords and capitalist class. Though they were paying the taxes, they were paying the rent, but they were not having any respect in the society. Getting my point? Capitalists were not having any respect because the society was under the control of feudal lords, and feudal lords were exempted from the taxes. Clear? So they were having no responsibility to pay tax, but they have authority, and they were having responsibility, but no authority. This was another reason for the clash of interest. This much is clear to all of you? Now, another reason was clash of interest between kings and feudal lords also. Now, what would be the clash of interest between king and feudal lords? Power, with respect to power, because he was the nominal power. And the real power was in the hands of feudal lords and church. So church was more powerful. Church was the most powerful institution. Clear? So during this time period, king was also looking for strengthening his authority. So king was also looking for strengthening his authority. Clear? So the authority of king was challenged by two groups. So his authority was challenged by two groups. On the one hand, it was challenged by church. On the other hand, feudal lords. So two groups were there who were challenging the authority of the king. Feudal lords and church. The question here is how to define political. Now the core political science class will start from today onwards. Okay. So how to define political? What is the meaning of this term political? Online student. Another question. What is the scope of political? What is the scope of political? Okay, what is the scope of political? So how to define political? What is political, first of all? A very simple answer. What is political? This word comes from polis. Polis. Polis was called as city states. Now, what do you understand from this? That means anything which comes under the domain of state will come under political science. Anything which comes under the state will come under political science. So you can mention draw this. Which comes under the state will come under the domain of political science. That is why you have written a definition in the last class that Garner says that political science begins with state and ends with state. Okay, so you can mention there. As per Garner, political science begins and ends with state. Okay, so here you can justify the term political science with respect to city state. So this is as per Garner's approach. Clear? So we have discussed 2 or 3 definitions of political science. What are those definitions which we have discussed in the last class? Just go through all the definitions once. Now the question here is, what all things that comes under the purview of state? So there are 2 things. There are 2 ways to understand the purview of state. One is conventional way. Conventional approach. Now conventional approach means old approach, traditional approach. Okay. Traditional approach. Another is modern approach. Modern approach. So basically there are 2 perspectives on the term state or political. So these are 2 perspectives. Two perspective on the term political or state. One is conventional perspective, another is modern perspective or approach. conventional means traditional perspective. Modern approach we can say contemporary approach. Okay, which is relevant even today also. Contemporary approach. So contemporary approach means this is the modern way of defining the term political science. Okay, just draw this. Ideologies. So some of the things that we have discussed yesterday in the class, like their economic policy is like autarky. Autarky means self-sufficiency. Yeah. So we have understood what was the background. Fascist economic policy. Then fascist foreign policy. Fascist foreign policy. Then fascist view of society also. Fascist view of society also. Now, fascist foreign policy, they always glorify war. They always glorify war. Getting my point? For example, Hitler and Mussolini glorified war. Now the question here is why they glorify war. Most important question here is why they glorify war. When you are unable to fulfill your promises, so at that time to divert the attention of masses, then what you will do, you will start war with your neighboring regions. It will divert the attention of masses. Getting my point? So Hitler used propaganda called as Lebeserum. Lebeserum means greater living space for Germans. That is why he started expansionist foreign policy for Germans. So in Poland also some of the German population was there. That is why he wanted to capture that Poland. And the moment he started a war with Poland, it results into Second World War. And before Poland also he captured various land like Sudeten land, which was under the control of Britain. Getting my point? Different lands he captured. Getting my point? Then, so Hitler used propaganda, and what was the propaganda in terms of war? His main policy was expansionist foreign policy. Expansionist foreign policy. Same case with Mussolini also. Though both of these leaders were elected to democracy, getting my point, but later they became dictator. Getting my point? Later they became dictator. So Mussolini's slogan was "Old Glory of Rome." भारत की सभ्यता समझो, सिंधु सभ्यता. Chandragupta Maurya, who created Bharatvarsh, these are part of propaganda. Getting my point? What we should learn from Chandragupta Maurya, how he integrated Indian subcontinent at that time. We should not use those things in present context, because at that time the situation was different. Today the situation is different. At that time there were only geographies. Today nation state system is there. Getting my point? So we should learn from his policies. Clear? But whenever, remember this thing, whenever leaders are unable to fulfill their promises, and that leader is authoritarian, if that leader is authoritarian in nature, then that leader will create dictatorial or totalitarian government. So today we'll start a topic that is Karl Marx. Now his time period is also similar to J.S. Mill. So he's a scholar of 19th century itself, and the time period of J.S. Mill and the time period of Karl Marx is same. Okay, that means his time period starts from 1818, 1818, and J.S. Mill 1806. Getting my point? Okay, so the time period of both the scholars are same, but their views are different. So 1818 till 1883. Karl Marx is considered as a greatest philosopher. And the most famous statement of Karl Marx is that all the philosophers have interpreted the world. What matters to change it? That means everyone has only interpreted the things, but he wanted to bring a change. Getting my point? He was the first scholar. That is why he is called as greatest of all philosophers. And the most famous statement all philosophers have interpreted the world. What matters to change it? Now, why he is considered as greatest of all philosopher? Because no philosopher has that kind of influence. Okay, unlike Karl Marx. Getting my point? Because of his ideology, nations are created like USSR, Russian Revolution took place, China, and socialism was spread in the world. Clear? Though socialism was before the Karl Marx also, but Karl Marx has given some scientific things in terms of socialism. Clear? He calls his socialism as scientific in nature. He calls his theory as praxis. Praxis means practical theory. He calls his theory as action-based theory, or theory leads to action. Getting my point? That is called as praxis, action-based theory. Draw this. So he says that his theory is praxis, that means action-based theory. That means he says that whatever we should do, that should be based on proper understanding. When we have proper understanding, then we can formulate good policies. Getting my point? So that is why Brothers, whatever we should do, that should be based on proper understanding. So Karl Marx belongs to that area when industrial revolution already took place and the extreme exploitation of working class was there. So he was more concerned about working class, okay, that their exploitations is going on. That is why he wanted to end the capitalist society. He wanted to end the capitalism. Clear? That is why in this scenario he became a critique of capitalism. Clear? So the most important thing is that he wanted to end the capitalism and establish socialism. End capitalism and establish socialism. So Marx was a critique of capitalism. Critic of capitalism. And he wanted to establish socialism. Clear, everyone? Today we will start with section A, that is political theory. In political theory, we'll try to understand the nature of political science, scope, and its approaches. Three things we will discuss. So, political science is that part of social science which lays the foundation of state, government, etc. Getting my point? As Garner said, it begins and ends with state. Clear? So there are different approaches in political science, how the nature of political science has changed since ancient till 21st century. Getting my point? So when political science was evolved, it was a part of philosophy. And then Aristotle gave its new identity, and then this became political science. So initially, so political science also begins with philosophy. So it is interdisciplinary in nature. Getting my point? There are various other disciplines which are associated with political science, like philosophy, law, history, etc. So this political science is that part of social science which lays the foundation of state or government, etc. Draw this. So today we will be starting Thomas Hobbes. So in the last session, we have completed till Machiavelli and some overview of Thomas Hobbes also. Now, Thomas Hobbes and Machiavelli, there are various similarities. Okay, we will discuss those similarities because both the scholars belongs to same age only. Getting my point? Both the scholars belongs to same age. Now, when Machiavelli was there, at that time, medieval age was about to end and modern age was about to begin. And when Thomas Hobbes was there, modern age was already started. That means age of Renaissance. Clear? So he is one of the most important philosopher. and he was from Britain. So it is said that he is considered as very important philosopher that English race has produced. And the time period of Thomas Hobbes, which starts from 1588. This is the year of birth of Thomas Hobbes. Online students, am I audible? Clear? So there is lot of continuity between Thomas Hobbes and Machiavelli. Now, what are the things that shows similarity between Thomas Hobbes and Machiavelli? Now, like both are the scholars of emerging capitalist class. Both are the scholars of emerging capitalist class. Now, if you see Machiavelli, now Machiavelli was a scholar who separated church and state, and this is called as European secularism or Western secularism. Now first try to understand. Machiavelli separated church and state, and Thomas Hobbes, what he did, he brought church under the state. That means state is supreme and church is subordinate authority. See the continuity. He's one person separated, and then what he did, he brought the supremacy of state. Now, if supremacy of state is there, that means sovereignty is there. Sovereignty means supreme authority. So Thomas Hobbes was the person who has given the theory of state sovereignty. This much is clear to all of you. He has given the theory of state sovereignty. So when you see Machiavelli and Thomas Hobbes, they are quite similar because lot of continuity between their thoughts. Clear? So both the scholars, so these two scholars, quite similar. And I'm also planning to give you at least one article a week so that you can read from the perspective of PSIR. You should know how to read newspaper from the perspective of PSIR. Getting my point? Okay. So the views of Machiavelli and Thomas Hobbes are quite similar. Both are the scholars of emerging capitalist class. So that is why, remember this thing, that one, that is Machiavelli, he separated only church and state, but Thomas Hobbes, what he did, he brought church under the supremacy of state. Clear? Grassroots democracy. Why grassroots democracy is needed? What are the advantages of grassroots democracy? First thing is good governance. Now, if you see, the concept of good governance came in 1992, and in the same year, the Act of 73rd and 74th was also introduced. Getting my point? So, first thing is, so if you see the advantages, that is good governance, that means that the participatory governance will be there on grassroots level. Clear? So good governance is very important. So for good governance, and good governance is not possible without community participation. Clear? So inclusive governance is a concept where different forms of governance will come. Clear? So not possible without community participation. Then if they ask other advantages, sustainable development also. For sustainable development, grassroots democracy is needed. And in sustainable development, Agenda 21st. नाम सुना है ना, Agenda 21st. So sustainable development. Agenda 21st. Now, Agenda 21st was adopted at Rio Summit in 1992. Agenda of 21st century. Clear? So, in this Agenda 21st also, they said that there is a necessity. So, there is a necessity for community development. Okay. Now, this Agenda 21st was adopted in Rio Summit of 1992. What is the most important outcome of Rio Summit 1992? UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And after that only COP started, Conference of Parties. अभी साल भी COP है, clear? So कुछ important COPs हैं, like Kyoto Protocol of 1997, Montreal Protocol, getting my point? And then Paris Summit of 2015, clear? Marrakesh, all these things are important, clear? So in current affairs, just go through this COP because you have to you have to write some of the important features of COP in paper 2. Yeah, today another form of diplomacy comes into the picture, that is environmental diplomacy. Clear? Draw this. Then another important thing is for grassroots democracy, it will help people on grassroots level. That means it is a kind of political training. It is a kind of political training, political education. What is democracy? Democracy means active citizenship. Active in the sense they should actively participate in the affairs of the country. Clear? So you can just mention democracy depends upon active citizenship. So the institution should be created. Institution should be created for the participation of people they have to be given capacity to make meaningful participation